"Don't worry if your mom can't help with math homework," Mrs. Patterson told my 8-year-old son Marcus, loud enough for the entire third-grade class to hear. "Not everyone is good with numbers. Some people just aren't built for it." He came home that afternoon with his permission slip and signed, and his eyes red from crying. He tried to hide on the bus ride. But why was I smiling as I kissed his forehead and opened my laptop, pulling up a file labeled Westbrook Academy, Lease Agreement? Because Westbrook Academy operated out of a building I'd purchased 4 years ago. And their lease was up for renewal in 60 days. Marcus climbed into my lap, still sniffling. "Mom, am I bad at math because you're bad at math?" "Baby, I'm not bad at math. And neither are you." I pulled him closer. "Tell me exactly what Mrs. Patterson said." The full story was worse than the snippet he'd shared. During a parent-teacher conference sign-up, Mrs. Patterson had announced that she didn't expect much parent involvement from certain families, because not all mothers have the educational background to help with third-grade curriculum. She'd looked directly at Marcus when she said it. "She thinks you're dumb, Mom," Marcus whispered. "Because you didn't go to college like the other parents." I didn't correct him. Not yet. Instead, I made him hot chocolate, helped him with his math homework, which he completed perfectly, and waited until he was asleep to make some phone calls. Mrs. Patterson was about to learn a very expensive lesson about assumptions. I never finished college, but not for the reasons people assumed. My name is Valerie Okonkwo, and I dropped out of MIT during my junior year, not because I was struggling academically, but because I'd already started a company that was growing faster than I could manage while attending classes. The company was called NextGen Properties. By the time I would have graduated, it was worth $12 million. By the time Marcus was born, it was worth $80 million. Today, our portfolio includes 340 commercial properties across 7 states, and our annual revenue exceeds $200 million. I'm worth, personally, somewhere north of $400 million. I hold patents in algorithmic property valuation that transformed how real estate investment firms assess risk. I've been featured in Forbes, Bloomberg, and the Wall Street Journal. I sit on the boards of 3 charitable foundations and advise the Federal Reserve on commercial real estate trends. None of this was visible to Mrs. Patterson. What she saw was a black single mother who delisted property management as her occupation on school forms. What she saw was a woman who drove a modest SUV. I had flashier cars, but they weren't practical for school pickup, wore minimal jewelry, I found ostentation distasteful, and had never attended a Westbrook Academy fundraising gala. I found them tedious. She decided, based on these superficial observations, that I was uneducated, unsuccessful, and incapable of helping my child with elementary school math. She decided to humiliate my son in front of his classmates based on her assumptions about his mother. That was her first mistake. Westbrook Academy was a private school in the affluent suburbs, the kind of place where tuition cost $35,000 a year and parents competed to donate the most impressive auction items. I'd enrolled Marcus there because it had strong test scores, a diverse student body, by suburban standards, and a philosophy that supposedly valued individual growth over standardized achievement. The building they occupied, a converted mansion on 12 acres, had been struggling financially when I purchased it 4 years ago. The previous owner, a nonprofit that had run an arts program, had gone bankrupt. I'd acquired the property at auction, invested in significant renovations, and leased it to Westbrook at below-market rates because I believed in supporting quality education. The school's administration had no idea their landlord was a parent. I'd structured the ownership through one of my holding companies, maintaining the same anonymity I used for most of my investments. I didn't want special treatment for Marcus, didn't want teachers fawning over my wealth. I wanted him to be evaluated on his own merits. Mrs. Patterson had apparently decided his merits were limited by his mother's perceived inadequacy. Time to reconsider that assumption. The school board meeting was held 2 weeks later. I'd requested a spot on the agenda through my property management company, citing lease renewal discussions. The board members, wealthy parents who volunteered their time in exchange for influence over school policy, had no reason to connect V. Okonkwo Holdings with the quiet mother they occasionally saw at pickup. I arrived early, dressed in the kind of power suit I typically reserved for investor meetings. My attorney, Miriam Valdez, accompanied me, along with our head of commercial leasing. We looked like what we were, serious business people with serious business to discuss. The board members' expressions shifted when they saw us. This wasn't the casual lease renewal discussion they'd expected. "Thank you for making time to meet with us," I began, taking my seat at the conference table. "I'm Valerie Okonkwo, principal owner of V. Okonkwo Holdings. We've been pleased to host Westbrook Academy for the past 4 years, and I'm here to discuss our ongoing relationship." The board president, a hedge fund manager named William Chen, leaned forward. We were under the impression this would be a routine renewal discussion. Is there a problem with the lease terms? Not with the terms themselves. More with some concerns about how the school operates and whether it aligns with the values we consider when selecting tenants for our properties. Confusion rippled through the room. Schools weren't typically evaluated like commercial tenants. Our holding company owns 340 properties, I continued. We're selective about who occupies them because our reputation depends on the quality and ethics of our tenants. Recently, I've become aware of some troubling incidents at Westbrook that have given me pause about renewing your lease. The head of school, Dr. Blackwell, sat up straighter. What kind of incidents? I opened my folder and slid a document across the table. 3 weeks ago, a teacher in your elementary school made comments to students suggesting that certain parents, specifically mothers in non-traditional academic or professional backgrounds, were incapable of assisting with basic homework. These comments were made publicly, in front of the affected child's classmates. The room went very quiet. I'm also aware of at least 4 other instances over the past 2 years where this same teacher made similar assumptions about parent capabilities based on superficial judgments rather than actual knowledge. I produced more documents. Complaints were filed with the administration in 2 of these cases. Neither resulted in any documented corrective action. Dr. Blackwell's face had gone pale. Mrs. Okonkwo, I assure you, we take all parent concerns seriously, do you? Because the parent in the most recent incident reported feeling dismissed when she attempted to raise the issue with the front office. She was told that Mrs. Patterson was a beloved longtime teacher, and that perhaps the comment had been misinterpreted. If you could share the specifics of who? The parent was me. The child was my son. And I assure you, there was no misinterpretation. The silence that followed was exquisite. I watched as the board members recalculated everything they thought they knew. The quiet mother at pickup. The modest car. The property management occupation. All of it reframed through the lens of the $200 million company sitting across from them, holding their lease in its hands. William Chin spoke first, his voice careful. Mrs. Okonkwo, we had no idea you were the property owner. If you had known, you would have treated me differently. That's precisely the problem, isn't it? I folded my hands on the table. I didn't disclose my ownership because I wanted my son to be treated based on who he is, not who his mother is. What I discovered instead is that he's being treated based on who his mother is assumed to be. We will absolutely address this with Mrs. Patterson. Will you? The same way you addressed it when other parents complained? With a shrug and a suggestion that they'd misunderstood. I shook my head. I've done my research. Mrs. Patterson has been with Westbrook for 12 years. She has tenure, strong relationships with influential parents, and a track record of dismissing concerns from families she perceives as less important. That's not, Dr. Blackwell started. Let me be clear about something. I leaned forward. I'm not here to get Mrs. Patterson fired, although I believe she should receive significant professional development on implicit bias. I'm here because my son came home believing he was bad at math because his mother must be stupid. That's not acceptable. And it's not something I'm willing to overlook in an institution that leases space from my company. The board members exchanged nervous glances. What exactly are you proposing? William Chin asked. I'm proposing that Westbrook Academy take meaningful action to address the culture that allowed this to happen. Not just disciplining one teacher, that's treating a symptom, not the disease. I want to see comprehensive bias training for all staff. I want to see clear protocols for handling parent complaints. And I want to see accountability measures that ensure this doesn't keep happening to families without the leverage I happen to have. And if we don't agree to these terms, then Okonkwo Holdings will need to reconsider whether Westbrook Academy is the right tenant for this property. Your lease expires in 60 days. I'm sure there are other educational institutions that would appreciate below-market rent on 12 acres of prime suburban real estate. The threat landed like a bomb. Westbrook had been in this building for over a decade. Their identity was tied to the property, the historic mansion, the sprawling grounds, the prestige of the address. Moving would cost millions, disrupt their operations, and damage their reputation. Let's not be hasty, Dr. Blackwell said quickly. We can absolutely implement the changes you're describing. We've been meaning to update our professional development program anyway. Wonderful. Then you'll have no problem putting that in writing. I nodded to Miriam, who produced a document. This is a memorandum of understanding outlining the specific actions we expect Westbrook to take as a condition of lease renewal. You'll notice it includes timelines, accountability measures, and provisions for ongoing review. The board members read the document with increasingly stressed expressions. It was thorough. I'd worked on it for a week with my legal team, anticipating every objection and closing every loophole. This is extensive, William Chin said. My son's dignity is extensive. The harm done to other children by similar comments is extensive. My expectations are proportionate. The vote was unanimous. The board agreed to every term in the memorandum. Mrs. Patterson would receive mandatory bias training, a formal reprimand in her personnel file, and supervision from the school counselor during parent interactions. The school would implement comprehensive professional development for all staff on implicit bias and assumptions. A new complaint protocol would ensure parent concerns were documented and addressed rather than dismissed. And Westbrook Academy would retain its lease at favorable rates, provided they demonstrated compliance through quarterly reviews. After the meeting adjourned, Dr. Blackwell approached me. "Mrs. Okonkwo, I owe you an apology. When you called about the incident with your son, my office should have taken it more seriously. We failed you, and we failed Marcus." "Yes, you did. I want you to know that Mrs. Patterson genuinely believed she was being helpful. She thought she was setting realistic expectations so students wouldn't be disappointed when parents couldn't assist them, and she determined those realistic expectations based on what? The color of my skin? The fact that I didn't attend her fundraising events? The car I drive?" I met her eyes. "Intent doesn't erase impact, Dr. Blackwell. Mrs. Patterson may have thought she was helping. But what she actually did was teach 33rd graders that they could judge someone's intelligence based on superficial characteristics. That lesson will stick with them far longer than any math worksheet." "You're right. And we're going to fix it. I'll be watching to make sure you do." That night, I sat with Marcus in his room while he finished his homework. "Mom?" He looked up from his math problems. "What happened at school today?" Mrs. Patterson seemed really upset. "We had a meeting. About making sure all the teachers treat all the students and their families with respect. Because of what she said about you. Because of what she assumed about me." I knelt beside his desk. "Baby, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you before." I explained my company. My education. My career. I kept it simple. He was 8, but I made sure he understood the essentials. "So you're not bad at math?" he asked, eyes wide. "I'm very good at math. Math helped me build my company. Math is one of the most important tools I have." Then why did Mrs. Patterson say? "Because she made assumptions based on things that don't matter. The way I look. The job title I wrote on a form. Whether I go to fancy parties." I took his hands. "People will make assumptions about you your whole life, Marcus. Based on your skin color, your name, where you come from. Some of those assumptions will be wrong. Most of them will be wrong. What do I do about it?" "You prove them wrong. Not to convince them, some people won't change their minds no matter what you accomplish. You prove them wrong for yourself. So you always know what you're capable of, even when others try to make you doubt it." He was quiet for a moment. "Mom? Are you going to get Mrs. Patterson fired?" "No. I'm going to help her become a better teacher. And if she can't become better, then the school will decide what to do." "That's nice of you." "It's not about being nice. It's about being effective. Firing her would feel satisfying, but it wouldn't fix the problem. She'd be gone, but the culture that let her say those things would still be there. Sometimes the right answer is harder than the easy one." He nodded slowly, processing. "Mom?" "Yes, baby? Can you help me with number 7? I'm stuck." I smiled and pulled my chair closer. "Let's look at it together." The changes at Westbrook took effect over the following months. Mrs. Patterson, to her credit, engaged genuinely with the bias training. She apologized to Marcus personally, not a forced, administrator-mandated apology, but a real one, with tears and acknowledgement of the harm she'd caused. I accepted it cautiously, recognizing that change was possible even when trust was broken. The school's new complaint protocol actually worked. Parents reported feeling heard when they raised concerns. Staff meetings now included discussions of implicit bias and how it affected student experiences. The culture shifted, slowly but noticeably. I remained anonymous to most of the parent community. I had no interest in the social currency that came with revealed wealth. But word spread among certain circles about a parent with connections who had forced the board to take action. Some resented me. Others sought me out, grateful that someone had finally addressed issues they'd been experiencing for years. The Black families were particularly relieved. "We've been complaining about comments like that for years," one mother told me at pickup. "Nothing ever happened. They always told us we were overreacting." "You weren't overreacting. They were underresponding." "Well, they're responding now. My daughter said her teacher actually asked about her father's job last week, not assumed, asked. First time that's happened in 3 years. Small changes. Incremental progress. Not a revolution, but a beginning. Marcus is in 5th grade now. He's excellent at math, always has been, as it turns out. He just needed someone to believe in him instead of expecting him to fail. His current teacher describes him as exceptional at problem solving and gifted with spatial reasoning. Last month, he came home with a perfect score on his math assessment. "Mom!" He waved the paper triumphantly. "I got everything right. I knew you could do it." Mrs. Patterson saw me in the hall and said congratulations. She said she always knew I had it in me. I bit back my response. Growth was complicated. People revised their narratives, convinced themselves they'd always been supportive. It was annoying but human. How did that make you feel? I asked instead. Weird. But also okay, I guess. She's different now than she was before. People can change when they're pushed to. Like when you pushed the school? Something like that. He set down his backpack and grabbed an apple from the counter. Mom? When I grow up, I want to be like you. A property developer? No. Someone who fixes things when they're broken. Even when it's hard. I pulled him into a hug, this fierce, brilliant boy who had once believed he was bad at math because someone decided his mother must be stupid. You can be anything you want, I told him. You just have to believe it before anyone else does. The lease renewal went through without issue. Westbrook Academy continues to operate from the building I own, now with a genuine commitment to the inclusive culture they'd only claimed before. Property values in the area have increased, my investment has nearly doubled. By any metric, the arrangement is mutually beneficial. But that's not why I did it. I did it because a teacher made my son feel small, and the institution that employed her saw nothing wrong with it. I did it because invisible power is only useful if you're willing to make it visible when necessary. I did it because assumptions have consequences, and consequences should flow in both directions. Mrs. Patterson still teaches 3rd grade. We exchange polite nods at school events. She probably suspects I was behind the board meeting, but we've never discussed it directly. Some conversations don't need to happen for their message to be received. Marcus will never know the full extent of what I did to protect him. He doesn't need to. What he needs to know is that he's capable, valued, and worthy of respect, regardless of what anyone assumes about his family. The rest is just real estate. She assumed I could help with math because she couldn't imagine a woman who looked like me succeeding at numbers. She saw a black mother in a modest car and decided she knew my story. But assumptions cut both ways. She assumed I was powerless. I assumed she could learn. One of us was right. The school still stands on my property, better than it was, teaching children that people are more than their appearances. That's not revenge. That's investment, the kind that actually pays off.